Sorry, friends. Won't be much longer. Just have a little error to tweak here. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational or perhaps entertainment purposes only, whichever the law would prefer. So I'll just pop this up and be with you one moment. Just gotta fix this thing going on here. Alright, I think we're good. Alright, sorry about that. Hello, everybody. Having a late night Sunday stream. Or perhaps Monday or whatever day it may be where you're at. Everybody have a good weekend? Do anything fun? Okay, so one thing I wanted to let y'all know about the music. I know with YouTube they do it. Any song that I play, they'll automatically pick it up and put it right. If you click the more button on the description tab and then scroll all the way down to any video that has music in it, you'll see a list of tracks, and I believe they're usually in order. So it makes it nice and easy if you're looking for a certain song. Now, the two songs I played at the beginning, oh boy, how am I going to pronounce that one? Okay, I'm going to butcher this one. Okay, it's by the Marianas and Quincus Moriera. Okay, so there's that one. I'm going to pop the name in the chat for y'all to make it easier. And then the second one is Drifted at 432 Hertz by Unicorn Heads, I think is the name of it. They've actually put out some decent stuff, but I will pop these in the chat for you now if you're interested in grabbing them. You can find these two for free in the YouTube Studio Audio Library, which is nice. They're good tracks. Okay, I think that's it. All right. There we go. So they're two tracks. The first track that we played was 4 minutes, and the second one is actually 23 minutes. So there are those songs. Just going to pop these on Odysee and Rumble. Okay. So I want to say hi to Black Uni, Joy, KMF over on Rumble, and Kyla and Mao, Rolling Water, and Black Uni. Thanks for checking all the channels. I appreciate that. And hello, Elmer Fudd, Brian. Shout out to Elmer Fudd. And Neo Ace, Bear, Uwu, Super, great to see you. Lawrence, great to see you. Ed, great to see you. Knack, hey, good to see you, my friend. I just sent you that copy that you requested. Dusty, hello. And Hume, great to see you. Roxanne, Timo, Priest, Kavitha. I hope I'm. Oh. And, did I say Roxana? Okay, I think I got everybody. Priest. Okay. All right, so this is a really interesting case. And I kind of went digging around. I like to usually, when possible, I don't always do this, but a lot of times what I'll try to do is find multiple interviews or testimonials of an experiencer to see if there's any variation, just to kind of gauge it. Now, one thing I notice with NDEers is sometimes there could be a few things. Like, one could be that they may feel shameful to share certain things, especially in the beginning when they first have their experience, and maybe they might be, reluctant to share the full story. But the other thing that can happen is that they get bigger and bigger pieces of the experience that they had. And now the one thing is, it shouldn't be drastic, right? Like, the information that changes shouldn't be all that drastic. With a few out there, I'm not going to name any names, but there are some NDEers out there who are all about the books, and they're putting out a book every year, every couple of years, every 3 years, and it's just having this massive amount of information that just magically appears. And when I see something like that, that's something entirely different. But poor Bethany here. Bethany Schmidt is the NDEer that we're going over. She was stuck in a coma loop and was entered like a burnt out cathedral, was being harassed by entities. They were targeting her with fear, guilt, and shame. And then she would just get to the point. Oh, the other thing is that she went down this spiral staircase. First, she was afraid to move anywhere because the scene was, as she said in one of her interviews, it was like a nuke went off. And what's interesting is some of these hell-like or coma loop experience, coma loop hell experiences, hellish experience. Sometimes they'll use that word it's it's run down, it's bad. There's something with the coma stuff that can really make things weird. One that stands out is the which one was it? The coma hell experience of the man who came face to face with the machine. I don't know if any of you remember that one. It is dark, real dark. It's fascinating, but you really need to listen to that on a certain day because it's not easy. I mean, they threw the gamut at him, and Bethany's no different. She was in a coma for quite a while. And there's interesting moments where as she's describing things that you can almost tell when she's coming out of that lucidity for a brief moment, and then she's pulled right back in. And when she's pulled in, the entire thing loops again. She enters the burnt cathedral, starts dealing with the entity harassment. She's afraid, doesn't want to move, goes down the spiral staircase and into this cave that she describes like a prison, like a carved out prison. And she says it's below the earth. Those are the words she used. So, it's really weird stuff. Interesting. And then there's another part of this experience that, is the savior aspect of this. So we're going to see both ends of the spectrum. And I really want to dive into comas in general. And it's almost like they're, I don't want to say dream loops, but they're just a lot more chaotic. It's almost like when someone is working on getting a breakthrough trip, right? They may have an amazing experience, but it's chaotic. Okay. So anyways, I don't want to ramble on too much. Let's just get into this. I do have 2 videos for this one. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get to both, but I would like to show you his interview with her interview. Jeff Mara's interview with Bethany. Let's just get that out there. Okay. And then, sorry, I'm saying a lot. Okay. And then a video from her channel where she's kind of going over the Cathedral experience. Okay. So let's just get rolling. Thank you for your patience tonight. Appreciate you all. One last thing. If members weren't aware of the stream level members, we've got the monthly members live stream next Sunday, a week from today, at 7:30 p.m. All right. Let me just make sure I don't get hit with any music. Okay. And this, again, is courtesy of Jeff Mara.
My guest is Bethany Schmidt. Bethany is a national recording artist and songwriter with nearly 14 years of secular performing experience and 27 years total in music. She had a near-death experience after being in acute respiratory distress, and today we're going to learn about it. Bethany, thank you so much for being my guest today, and welcome.
My pleasure.
All right, if you don't mind, let's start on the day it happened and go from there.
Okay, so I'll back up just a couple days. My son, I was getting ready for his first birthday, and we had both had the flu the week before, and he got over it fairly quickly. And I was just still not feeling good. And so, but I'm doing the mom thing and I'm pushing through because I have to plan a first birthday party. So that was on a Saturday. And then Sunday night, we had to go play at a church event in another city. So we did that. And while I was there, when we got done, I took my temperature because I brought my medicine and my thermometer because I was just not feeling good. And my temperature was 105. Wow. And I was just like, I have to get home. So got home, got into bed. And the next morning when I woke up, I was incredibly dizzy, weak. I got my son up. Again, he's only a year old. And I kind of try to get him his breakfast and lay down on the couch. And then next thing I remember, I woke up. I realized I had passed out. And so I called my husband. He came home, took me to the ER, and we lived in a very, very, very small town with a tiny little hospital. So we went to that hospital and they did an x-ray. My blood pressure was like 69/31. And my oxygen level was really low. So they immediately thought I had pneumonia, and they did an x-ray. And he just came in, he said, "You need to be in ICU. We can't treat you here." So they called an ambulance and took me to another nearby hospital, which was kind of a mid-level hospital. It wasn't, not very big, but definitely more prepared than the tiny little hospital I was at. And so I got taken there by ambulance. And when I got there, they immediately put me in ICU, started breathing treatments. That I don't remember. I'm going to tell you basically what what I was told happened, because that's all I remember. The last thing I remember is getting to the second hospital. And so I was given breathing treatments. And over the next 2 days, I began to decline. And over these 2 days, I had been working at a pediatric office. And the doctors I worked for was the pediatrician on call at that hospital. And she was telling my family, you need to get her to a different hospital because otherwise she's going to die here. She needs a higher level of care. So on the morning of the third day that I was in that hospital, my husband had planned on going in and asking them to transfer me. But when he arrived, he was told by the pulmonologist in the ICU that I had coded and that I had been put on life support. And there was already a helicopter on the way to pick me up to take me to a different hospital in a bigger city, which was Asheville, North Carolina, Mission Memorial there. And so when they did that, evidently they said that I was a difficult intubation when I'd stopped breathing, when everything had started to shut down. They said there was question as to whether there was a ventilator in the ICU. They just weren't prepared. So I was gone for about 10 minutes there. They finally got me back, intubated me, was breathing for me. I got put on the ambulance or on the helicopter. And again, I had coded multiple times on the way to the hospital in Asheville. And when I arrived there, they put me in the neurotrauma ICU.
Okay. I believe I got to pause this here just to let you know that because I don't think she brings it up in this one, but if she does later, I apologize, but I want to just put it out there. So who had airlifted her were actually, she knew them. So it's one of those weird situations where there's either someone that you know nearby who's going to be able to step in, or some family friend or whatever the case may be, and then or just someone who's a random specialist like a nurse or a doctor, just so happens to be nearby, kind of like if you get struck by lightning and there just happens to be a lightning strike expert, in the middle of nowhere by your payphone. I mean, that case, I just always go back to that one because it's just incredible. Anyways, let's move on.
Because I had been without oxygen for so long, they were sure I would have neurological damage. So I spent 12 days in the neurotrauma ICU there. And they basically just tried to keep me alive long enough for me to fight off whatever I had. It acted like pneumonia. They said it acted like a staph infection, but they even had infectious disease specialists come in, the CDC. They just still to this day don't know what I had, but it was causing abscesses all in my lungs. And I still don't have an answer as to what it was. So eventually, they called my family in. My brother-in-law came in from Montana. My family came up from Florida because they kind of thought that was it, and so I gradually did get better though. And it took a while. They would try to wean me off and it wouldn't work. And they'd have to put me back in the coma. So this went, one step forward, two back for about 2 weeks. Excuse me. And then finally, they they were able to wean me off of it. And I spent another month in the hospital because I did have neurological damage. I couldn't talk. I was having hallucinations. I couldn't remember why I was there. Couldn't remember what year it was. I had a lot of damage in my throat, and that was probably from the intubation, the feeding tube. I had an NG tube also, just all that. And yes, so I spent another month in the hospital and then an additional 2 weeks. But that's everything I was told. But from my experience, what happened was the last thing I remember was the ICU doors opening of the second hospital. And I remember parts of them giving me a first breathing treatment. And then that's it. I don't remember anything else until I woke up in about 2.5 weeks later in the hospital in Asheville. So the last thing I remember, I'm having trouble breathing, so I just close my eyes. And then when I open my eyes again, I look down and it looks like I'm standing on nothing. And I realized where I was. I just kind of had a knowing that I was not in my body anymore and that I was somewhere else. And being a believer, I believed I was in heaven. And I can remember being afraid to take a step because when I looked down, it looked like I was standing on nothing. But just as I had that thought, a light hit it and I could see it was just this almost like an iridescent gold coating over it. And I realized, okay, I can walk. So I took a step and then I looked up and I just saw people walking by. I saw a city in front of me. It's interesting because I think as a Christian, I had a preconceived notion about what heaven would look like, and it looked nothing like I thought it would. It's very, very hard to explain. There's all these sounds, and the way I describe it is that I knew it was like choirs of angels, but they're all singing a different song, but it's somehow all coming together to form one song.
You ever hear something like this before? It does pop up, or still talk about how it's just like the most beautiful song ever. But like hearing the way she describes it's interesting because I've run across these before. It's like you're hearing, like she said, different songs like molding into one. Really fascinating stuff.
Singing a different song, but it's somehow all coming together to form one song. It's the strangest thing. But
okay, I'm just going to insert something. I may have shared this one time. Okay, so sorry. I know. Here comes a little side ramble that's unrelated, but still interesting. So, when a very close family member of mine was passing, I had gone to visit them, and in between visiting them, I need to just get outside the house and get some fresh air. It was just intense. So, because they were on hospice, they're, very little time to live. And when I get out, I'm telling you, I heard the loudest bagpipes ever. And I'm telling you, they were blaring. And I'm looking around, trying to find out where the hell this is coming from. Now, mind you, where I was, it was like a huge condominium complex, massive. So there's, condo after condo after condo all over the place, people walking, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, where the hell is that coming from? And I'm just walking and hoping that I'm going to get to the source of this, but no one is reacting. It was the strangest shit ever. I mean, and for music to be that, if it was music, at least if it was a human playing it, then people would be reacting. Nobody was reacting. No one's looking. No one's like, what the hell's going on? It was the strangest shit. And I probably should have included what had happened before that. All right, so when I pulled up, this is before the bagpipes. When I pulled up, there was this woman that I would park in front of her, or not in front of her, but like right next to her condo, and like off to the side, there was a stone staircase, and she used to plant this incredible garden, like really impressive stuff, and do all sorts of meditative rock formations. I mean, she was pretty cool, and I was very familiar with her yard. I mean, I'd walk past it all the time, and I get out of my car, and I kid you not, I see this, what can only be described as like a glistening wooden, like extremely well polished gnome. And the weirdest thing is that everything, I kept saying to myself, I want to steal this. I want to steal this. I want to take this home with me. Like, I don't know why I was thinking that, but I just kept thinking that. And remember, this is the same day as the bagpipes. I didn't take it, but there may be a reason why I didn't take it. So I go up to the staircase, visit my family member, go outside, go down a different staircase, experience the whole bagpipe thing, go back in, spend a few more hours, leave, come back down the other staircase where the gnome was, and it was gone. It was gone. I had never seen it there before, and I never saw it after. So make of that what you will, but the whole day was weird as hell. And so anyways, there you go. So that's my little music part, and I really should have. This was not a dream. This was no. I was fully present. I had to drive an hour there and back, to get there. It was it was definitely not a dream, because someone was dying and I was visiting them in hospice care, in-home hospice care. Okay, so yeah, it was wild.
Singing a different song, but it's somehow all coming together to form one song.
Thank you for listening.
It's the strangest thing, but it was beautiful. I had an awareness of what had happened. I had an awareness that I still had family at home, and that I had a son and 2 daughters and a husband. But my thought process in the moment it was just peace. And I didn't have any, I don't know what the word is. There was no longing. There was no desire to be with them, because in my mind, I knew there was no time, so they would be there with me soon. That's how it felt to me. It was like, oh, they'll be here soon, so why would I miss them?
So yeah, it's interesting, right? So she's at the point now where she's in the headspace where, they're going to be fine. Everything's cool. Kind of like some of the other cases we've gone over where I know I brought up that one fairly often. that one fairly often, excuse me, that one fairly often where the mother has an NDE. A mother has an NDE, and she feels the same way. Oh, my kids are gonna be fine. My husband's fine. They got my husband. Blah blah. And then the Matrix starts throwing the kitchen sink at her and going down like the list. It was like the daughter, the son, and the husband, and then it ended up and she's like, no, they'll be fine. They're all fine. They're all fine. Even though like she had like a very young, I think, son at the time, like a couple years old, very young, and like I don't know, maybe like 8-9-year-old daughter or something like that. Anyways, the Matrix is just trying to throw the emotional baggage at her. And she's like, no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm going to stay. And then they throw, oh, but what about your mother? She has cancer down on Earth. You going to take care of her? What about her, huh? That was it. That was the tipping point for her. But we see time and time again, a lot of experiencers go from, NDEers specifically, go from not wanting to go back or instantly basically saying, oh, well, I want to stay, but, I all of a sudden I had a thought to my family on Earth or my dogs or whatever, right? Something that is an emotional Matrix attachment, and then that is always followed up with the catalyst for them coming back. It is very, very consistent, that data point. It pops up over and over and over again. And what else could it be than for lack of a better term, a mind parasite? Something that is trying to either change your mind, and if it hasn't changed your mind, then you're already thinking of them because the mind parasite the program that the Matrix inserts into the experiencer at the time while they're going through it, that all of a sudden gets them thinking about life back on Earth, and then boom, they go back. I mean, it's over and over and over again. So it's interesting in this juncture of her experience to be thinking like that, saying, oh, they'll be fine. They don't die. We'll be together again. So there's the attachment anyways for future use, future incarnations. But you have to remember, it's a little different with where we're at with her. She's got a long-term experience going on, regardless of the whole time factor. So it's a little different with her, but nonetheless interesting. And well, they still win in the end, and you'll see.
That's how it felt to me. It was like, oh, they'll be here soon, so why would I miss them? Like, it just no care, no worry, no nothing. It was interesting. So I'm just wanted to check things out, and I see people walking by, and I didn't know where I was going. And I can remember looking at a woman, and she actually kind of looked like my aunt, but my aunt hadn't passed away or anything. She just reminded me of her. And I went to speak, but before I went to speak, I heard her in my head say, this way. But she didn't speak. So there was no talking. It was just knowing between people. And so
So what are we hearing right here? We're hearing orders. This way, follow me. Don't do anything sovereign. Follow me. Go along with the show. Do as you're told. I mean, she's in a vulnerable position. I'm not at all crapping on Bethany. It's just she's in a very vulnerable position right now, and there's quite a bit of religious programming prior.
Just knowing between people, and so I started to walk that way. And I mean, I was just looking around. I mean, I guess I was taking it all in, and the colors were more colorful, and it's the air itself had a, I don't know how to explain it. The air itself almost had a color. If you've ever seen, when the sun shines through a window and you get little bits that kind of sparkle, bits of dust that sparkle, the air looked like that, all of it. And so I started to follow her, and I heard water running. And then I remembered the scripture that said there is a river flowing from the throne room of God, or the throne of God. And I was like, aha, like things just started clicking, and I remember things that I had read from the Bible, or that I had learned when I was younger, and they weren't.
Now, see, it's interesting how it's. Remember, she's full in. There's an interesting video of her from a number of years ago, where she's on a stage with her husband, and they were at some sort of religious ceremony, Christian ceremony, and the husband's on guitar helping her. And if I had to guess, the experience was pretty fresh at that point, or maybe not. I don't know. I don't recall what year it happened, but I want to say the video that I saw was probably at least maybe 7 to 10 years old, a while ago. This interview here is about 2 years ago, and then a video that I'm going to play later is about 3 years ago. That's from her channel, I believe, or it's flipped 2 and 3 or 3 and 2. And what was the point of this? Oh yeah, the religious programming. You see it very clearly even after the NDE, but you also hear her discussing the connection here. We see the customization. And, of course, she's going to have changed views afterwards, which almost every NDEer has. That's not surprising. But the core concept, the core matrix belief system that separates her sovereignty and in turn she relinquishes herself to, is present throughout everything.
Aren't necessarily outright things I saw necessarily, but even the ground I was standing on, I can remember the Bible says streets of gold. Well, I expected gold, but it wasn't gold like I expected. It looked different. It felt different. So it was just kind of overwhelming. And I remember I kept walking, and as I did, it felt like, the way I describe it is like that I had a rope around my waist, and that someone yanked a cord, and everything, it disappeared from my view, and everything went black. And things were black for a while. I just kind of sat in dark and silence. And then my eyes began to focus, and I look around, and it's really dim, and I'm in this.
Okay, so I want to back this up. The chord concept is interesting, right? Let me know what you guys think, because we hear about the chord all the time, especially with OBEs.
Everything, it disappeared from my view, and everything went black. Describe it is like that I had a rope around my waist, and that someone yanked a cord, and everything, it disappeared from my view, and everything went black.
Interesting, huh? Really, really interesting.
And things were black for a while. I just kind of sat in dark and silence. And then my eyes began to focus, and I look around, and it's really dim, and I'm in this dark place that reminded me of like a burnt out cathedral. And I was standing on a staircase. And if I'm looking forward, it was kind of off to my left. And the staircase went into the cathedral and kept going down. And so I sat down on the steps because it was so different from where I just came from. And I was just suddenly overcome with this feeling of separation from anything good. There was no light. There was just a sense of anxiety and dread, and it was terrifying, really. So I sat, and I was too scared to even move. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't understand where I'm at. I'm just confused. And I start to hear a voice behind me, and I didn't see who was talking to me. But it started accusing me and saying, this is where you belong.
Here we go.
And then it started reminding me of, everything bad I had ever done. And I've lived a lot in 45 years. I just had my 45th birthday, and I was a teenage mother. I've been divorced. I've been in an abusive relationship. I mean, I've lived a lot in those 45 years. And I used to abuse alcohol, drugs. So I came out of that, but he started from the beginning or whatever, and just started listing off all these things I had done and telling me this is where I belonged. I didn't deserve any of that where I was before.
Wow. I mean, how convoluted is that? That's just so messed up. Ugh, poor thing. I mean, again, it's the fear, guilt, shame matrix. Seriously, what we see here is a prime example of what really goes on. Both ends of the spectrum. She's getting, the good one. She's getting the bad experience, the good experience, the bad experience. But guess what? They're all part of the same playing field. And this is why we can't just blindly trust what is being advertised with the afterlife. I'm sorry. I'm not convinced that everything is love and light. I'm just not. It would be nice if it was, but when you see the level of deception going on here, and that there is a direct pipeline from here to the astral, or here to any sort of astral experiences that are familiar to us, or that we've been programmed to believe here, and then they're carried over there, that should be a massive red flag. This whole thing, this whole experience is extremely shady. It's filled with deception, lies, manipulation. So we know that to be the case. It's a fact. There's a lot of good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not Mr. Negative all the time. And remember, it's all about the self-empowerment to build up your sovereign resolve for liberation and non-interference. But at the end of the day, I think it becomes increasingly easier and easier to see how, hey, if what we see here is going on, and there's a direct pipeline in the afterlife to something linked to here that we came from and are going to, then wouldn't that be a red flag? How could it not be? That's all I'm going to say. We're being hoodwinked on a grand scale.
And it went on and on and on. And finally, I got up and I just ran down the stairs Well, as I walked down the stairs, it spiraled down. And I decided to follow it because I was mainly just trying to get away from this, whatever it was that was talking to me. So I started going down the staircase. And as I get down the staircase, I'm in an underground hall. And it looks like kind of like the pictures I've seen of like the caves in Paris, the underground tunnels, things like that. But I noticed there were cells carved into the wall, the actual earth. And inside these cells were these, I don't know how to explain it. They had human features, but also animal features, beast features. They were like these just monsters. I mean, it sounds childlike, but it's really the only way I know how to describe it. I've never seen anything like it in a movie or anything. But they also didn't talk. But I began to see and hear visions of what they wanted to do to me. And it was the most terrifying pictures. There's no horror movie. There's nothing that can describe what they were conveying to me. And for a few minutes or however long it was, I don't know, I was just frozen in fear. Finally, I ran out and sat back on this staircase, and I was just sobbing. I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where I was. I didn't understand what was happening. And the voice came back and started it all over again. And I got to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore. And I don't remember. I mean, I started having memories of my grandmother was a very spiritual, she was kind of like the spiritual leader of our family. And she was the one who used to take me to church and believed in me and prayed for me when I was, just acting a fool when I was younger. And I just remembered a song she used to sing, and a song we sang in church. And I don't know why I didn't think of it before then, but it said, call on the name of Jesus. So I just cried out the name Jesus. And just like that, I heard a voice say, I'm here. And just like I was pulled by a rope.
Okay, but the one thing, and maybe I missed it because I've listened to a number of her accounts, and she talks about, I think she may even talk about this one. I'm sorry if she does, but like she would get to that point for calling out to Jesus, and then would come to, and it would loop right all over again, or she'd start to come to even like in the earth realm, and then boom, go right back, loop over and over again, back to the burnt out cathedral. So it took her a little bit, I think quite a while, to get to the point of breaking that, despite calling on Jesus multiple times, or for how many days, and who knows how many days equals what that equals in the astral when we're talking about a diminished perception of time, if not no time at all.
Oh, this time it felt like I was just lifted up underneath my arms and pulled out of there. And I woke up and I was in the hospital. And at that point, I wasn't, I guess, able to breathe on my own or whatever. So they put me back under. And when they did that, that whole scene, started over again. And every time I would become conscious and they would put me back under, that would happen again. And after the first few times, I realized that, and from my beliefs, I believe it was a demon, Satan, trying to get me to just give up my will to live. My mom was a nurse for 30 years, and I can remember her telling me, and she worked with elderly, with terminally ill patients. And she said, the will to live is everything. If they give up, it's only a matter of time. And I knew what it was trying to do was get me to just give up my will to live, because at that point, I felt like it was the only thing keeping me alive, or hanging on, at least, my body. So this would happen again and again and again. And finally, the last time I woke up was when I was completely off the ventilator and all the medication had worn off, the medication to keep me in a coma. And so that was the end of that part.
So yeah, that's the coma aspect to it. And obviously we heard the medication part and how that links in. And, I just got to say it. I think we have to be very clear about our directives. Something like this, and I feel that this goes for a lot of the drugs out there. Now, there is a degree of separation, right? So, I'm not exactly 100% certain on this part, but at the same time, I see cloudiness after cloudiness after cloudiness in many accounts like this. And, when it's our time to go, it's time to go. And we release the connection to the body and the meat suit or whatever. But at the same time, I'll be damned if I'm going to have my any end of life care that has me not lucid and drugged up beyond belief. It's just not going to happen. I think everyone has to make their own decision on that. But at the same time, I want a clear head. Now, does that mean I'm not going to, try and alleviate pain or something like that? No, but I'm not going to alleviate pain to the point where I'm completely comatose or like that, or I'm so out of it that I cannot communicate with my environment in the earth realm, right? I think it's a really important thing for us to consider. Now, whether it matters or not in the end, I don't know. But it just, something seems off about it. And it begs the question, especially in the United States. I can't speak for many other countries, but basically, what we do in this country is slowly increase something like opiates, morphine, whatever, to the point where someone basically dies and gives out. That's, in short, what happens at hospice. They don't tell you that, but that's what happens. Okay? So, but like, one of the things you have to think about is, I can imagine myself, let's just say, on my deathbed, and I am like, there's a difference, and she even brings this up. Bethany brings this up about the will to stick around, the will to live. You know, when I get to that point, I'm not going to keep that will up. I'm going to just, all right, let's go. Right? I mean, I'm not going to be sitting around hanging out longer than I have to. Like, you know, if my meat suit's giving out and I'm in a tremendous amount of pain and stuff like that, okay, it's time to go. But I sure as hell I'm not going to be fighting for it. So being aware of your intention and having that lucidity to kind of call the shots in the final moment, so you're not prolonging the inevitable, so to say, and being drugged out of your mind. I think we all have a lot of control over that, more than we may like to think. So again, I can't say with any certainty about a lot of the things that I just said, but at the same time, just be careful with the drugs. Just be careful. I think being clear-headed and lucid is an important thing, but in the end, does it matter during that phase where you're transferring out of the meat suit, or is there like a little bit of lag or a little bit of leftovers, so to say, that could potentially take down our faculties, our lucidity? I don't know. But I sure as hell am not going to be taking any chances. Okay.
But I still, again, I couldn't eat. I couldn't swallow.
I mean, you've lived, if you look at it this way, sorry. One last thing on what we were just talking about. It's like, if you made it that far, right, to the point of where you're on your way out, if you made it that far, what's a little bit of pain for a few days or a few extra hours, if it means clarity? I mean, it's like, that's it. Remember, that's the last time. This is the last time you'll ever have to deal with it. And, breathing, right? If you can breathe. All right, I'm sorry. Let's just move on. I'm just throwing a lot of things out there.
Again, I couldn't eat. I couldn't swallow. Couldn't talk. Couldn't walk. And they were running every test, doing MRIs, swallow studies. I was seeing neurologists, and I'd have a specialist come in, and they just thought it had to be brain damage from the lack of oxygen. So they told my husband that I was probably going to need to be transferred after I was stable enough to a rehab facility for 3 to 6 months. And so they started having, while they're getting my health back, my oxygen level was still low. So they're trying to get me well enough where I can move to a rehab facility. I'm still seeing physical therapists, speech therapists. I wasn't able to stand yet, but they're coming in, trying to get me to sit up, get in the chair, all these different things. And my husband, at this point, they moved me out of ICU and down to a step-down unit, and he was finally able to stay with me because he had been, as you know, you can't stay with the patient in ICU. So he would sleep in our van in the parking lot and come in and sit with me in the ICU until he had to leave again. But now he was able to be in the room with me, and he said mentally I was gone. I knew who he was, but the voice had told me that I had been in a car accident and that my son was dead and that I was paralyzed and that he had left me. So a lot of times people have ICU dementia, which is basically when you're in a coma, your brain doesn't get any exercise. You begin to hallucinate. So that was happening. It was a mess. And every night he would, I was pulling tubes out. They had this vest that strapped me down to the bed because I would try to get up and I couldn't walk. So I was a fall risk. And yeah, they were just praying that, I would gradually get better. And then one night, we were probably about 3 weeks in to the therapy and trying to get me back to a baseline. And my husband had been reading the Bible to me because I couldn't read or write. He'd been reading the Bible to me, and he said he looked at me and I looked different. And he said, and his question to me to know where I was at mentally would always be, do you know why you're here in the hospital? And my normal answer would be, yeah, I was in a car accident. I wasn't. So he said, he looked at me and I looked different. He said, babe, do you know why you're here? And I said, yeah, I got the flu and got pneumonia. And he was like, what? And I said, yeah, I got the flu. I got pneumonia. I got septic. And, and like he started freaking out a little bit, and he called the nurse and everything. Well, what I didn't know was at that time, they were having a church service, and a friend of mine had gone into church, and before they even started service, she went up to the front and she's like, I want to stand in for Bethany. She's like, and I want to pray for her healing. And so my entire church gathered around her and laid hands on her, and they prayed for me. And in that moment, my brain was healed. And from that moment until I walked out the door on my own was 3 days later. Whereas, 72 hours before, I couldn't even stand, I couldn't speak, I couldn't write, I couldn't do anything. So that's what happened.
Well, that was an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
No problem.
When you kept being put back into that unconscious state,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to relive that stairwell incident over and over again, did you keep calling out to Jesus again and he would pull you out, or you would just, when you became conscious, you were out of it?
No, that the last time that I called out for Jesus was the last time it happened. So it never happened again after that. This was all leading up to that moment where I was being worn down. Every time I would go, it was just wearing on me until I got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. And that's when I called out to him, and it never happened again after that.
Do you feel like those experiences are just as real as life here right now?
100%. I actually suffered some pretty serious PTSD from the things I saw.
Yeah.
I mean, it was real enough that it affected me physically.
Wait to hear this one.
I had as you can imagine, I had trouble sleeping because I didn't want to go under. That fear of going under and seeing that again was so much. And I still suffer with insomnia. That PTSD is not as bad now, but I still do. But yeah, I would have, panic attacks if I thought about it. So it was very, very real.
You appear to have recovered well from it.
I have short-term memory loss, which is fun for my husband.
I can relate to that.
But other than that, I do still have a little bit of damage in my throat. Fortunately, they said I would never sing again, and that didn't happen. So it did not affect my singing. It affected, I guess, the muscles here. So sometimes when I get tired, I'll slur my speech a little bit. But other than that, I do have more trouble swallowing than I did before. I have to be careful and just make sure I chew well, have a drink, But other than that, and the short-term memory loss, I do feel like, like I said, I still suffer with the insomnia. I think maybe my internal clock got broken. I don't really get sleepy, or again, it could just be the anxiety about sleep. But other than that, it's relatively normal. I did develop the infection caused me to have some autoimmune issues. So I do have RA, but I control it with how I eat and things like that. So, but I mean, as opposed to what could have happened, I'm definitely way better. And it did take a while. I didn't get back, to 100 right away. It took a few years, but the mental part was what we were most worried about.
Understandably so. So I had I had to take a lift about, I don't know, four days ago in the afternoon. I ran into a very, very nice woman, and she just terrible. She works in or at least she worked in a very, very affluent area of renting real estate by the beach. And so what her job involved is showing basically the rich, or at least upper middle class, or silly, ridiculous rich, these homes or their representatives. And so she has to go up and down stairs all the time and show the property, go all over, and see if it's fit for whoever wants to rent it. Anyways, just earlier this year, I think it was in April, she said, she had bent over to pick up something and ended up smashing her head really hard on a I don't know if it was some sort of something that she didn't see, right? She just misjudged it and hit her head real hard. And so she ends up driving home, doesn't have any memory of driving home, and got a severe concussion. And so what are we? We're in December. So this was 8 months ago. And she still can't go back to her job. And right now, where I live, it's like prime time for her to make a living. And she can't make a living. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, because she can't go up and down the stairs and she's on her phone all the time. It's too much. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm in a car with you, lady. You got a concussion, and you can't do that. You can't go up the stairs and do that, but you're driving me around. That was a little concerning. But, she's very sweet, great driver. But I'm listening to her story. Mind you, she's got children. Okay, she's got 3 children. 2, one is, I believe, in college, just went into college, and then she's got another one who is about to go into college. And she's got a younger child, I think like 12 or 13 or something. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, how is she going to do it? And she's worried about losing her job. She's not sure if they're going to be able to keep her post much longer because she's been out for 8 months, and the time of year that we're in right now is where she makes the most money. And so she works her ass off, like 24/7 for a period of about 5 to 6 months. And then she takes off a number of months in the summer and then comes back, does some light work, and then boom, it's right back to, the insanity. And I'm sitting there saying, it's like she banged her head and she can't work. She can't afford her house anymore, she said. She's trying to make ends meet by driving people around on Lyft. She's got 2 kids in college with a younger one who's probably going to go to college, or at least, she wants to keep the option open and save money for them all, and she can't do it. She can't do it. And it's, but what's even more depressing is that insurance was fighting her. Like, she went to a neurologist, and immediately the answer was, oh, we want to put you on pain meds. And she's like, I'm not in pain. She's like, I'm just having problems with processing and whatever the case may be, the side effects of a concussion. She's not in pain anymore. The freaking thing happened 8 months ago. And she's like, no, I'm not going to go back to him because he's just a pill pusher. And insurance is like, no, you've got to go see him because you need to, before we can approve you for anything else, you got to see him. So talk about some shisty stuff. Anyways, I don't know why I brought up that story, but it's just one of those examples. It's heartbreaking. As she was telling it to me, I was just like, yeah, it just crushed me to hear it. And, that's the Matrix for you, right? What's she going to do? She thinks she might sell her house and all that stuff. It's really terrible. And then you have kids that have to go to college. It's like, whew.
You say RA, do you mean rheumatoid arthritis?
Yes. And that's an autoimmune disorder. And fibromyalgia, which comes along with that, same thing. The infection, anytime you have an infection or a trauma, it can trigger an autoimmune disorder. So, yeah, but I'm doing pretty well.
Okay, let me just tell you this. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. But fibromyalgia is the lazy answer for doctors to get you out of their office. Okay? Bottom line. Okay? If you're being diagnosed with something like that, they're not getting to the root cause of whatever's going on. I was diagnosed with that many times by about 3 doctors. Okay? And what I ended up seeing in the long run was lazy doctors. Okay? So I think it's one of those conditions that the system just puts out there, and because because the doctors are lazy, or perhaps the system doesn't want you to perhaps find out what really may be going on for whatever reason. In my case, it was Lyme disease, right? They, which is something that is actively hidden. And people who have it are shunned, and doctors lose their licenses and all that stuff. I mean, I don't know if it's as prevalent these days, but I know it was happening not that long ago. The point I'm trying to make is there's one thing I can say with certainty, is that specific thing is a lazy answer for the community so that they can just give you pills and throw you out the door. Okay? It's not about actually getting down to what may be your problem. Okay? Anyways, again, I'm not a doctor, not a medical professional. You should always consult your own medical professional, your doctor, your whatever the case may be. You know, not a medical professional. Okay.
Well,
How do you think you've changed now spiritually and personality wise from this experience?
I think God definitely became more real to me. I think as Christians, we can tend to have this idea that God is somehow
you.
so far away,
So
and that,
far away.
you know, I am one person, and who am I? But I believe that the God I serve is big enough that he is interested in every single one of his children. I think they're all important to him. Just like I have 3 kids, there's not one that's, less important. So I see God. I think I have a better idea of his identity as Father, rather than just some deity, just as Creator. It's a much more personal thing now. And I also think that one thing I found interesting was that I did not, this is hard to put. My husband saw me suffering until I expired, but I didn't feel any of that. It's almost like I was taken out of consciousness, until, so that I was spared some of that suffering. So it also put the question into my mind is, is that what also happens to other people who die? That maybe sometimes we see these tragic things and these horrific things, and maybe that's how it appears, but maybe that's not really what's going on spiritually. So that gave me some more questions. And I think I'm also just much more, the veil between here and there is a lot thinner. I think we don't realize how close it is, and not close as in death close, but as in the spiritual world. So yeah, I think those are a few things that occurred to me.
When you were there and you saw the woman that you communicated with telepathically, when you look,
I mean, the whole serving God thing. I think I talked about it a little bit earlier. There's a video of her. At least it's the first video I was able to find of her discussing this on a stage. You can look her up, Bethany Schmidt. I would search Bethany Schmidt near-death experience and then set the filter to over 20 minutes doing a search, because these days finding anything is a freaking nightmare, but it'll come up. Anyways, if you do decide to watch it, she's clearly come back and still had this desire, this motivation, this programming, I'll just say it, this programming that she's had for probably all of her life to, quote, serve God. And what you're seeing here today, and again, Bethany, if you're listening, or any experiencer, I mean, no ill will whatsoever. It's just that I have a different perspective than most, and I still respect everyone's journey and story. But the experience you had is heartbreaking. It's disturbing. And at what point you were actually outside of your body, like in like something like an NDE versus perhaps maybe something different with the coma medication. See, that's the problem. Like, it's hard to put those together and know with any certainty if you're outside your body, but at least with the coma aspect of things. But I think you were, because the one thing with coma, especially the hellish like experiences with coma, or the dark, negative, whatever you want to call them, experiences with coma, is some of them can be just downright evil. Like, and so coming back to that must be really difficult. And so I empathize greatly with Bethany and whatever journey she's on. But at the same time, what does it boil down to? It really, if you really just take it all down and look at it with an open mind, what we see is the same system. You have belief systems, you have experiences, you have those experiences being molded based on your belief systems that were garnered here and then used against you over there outside your body. Again, bridging the gap between the two worlds, or between at least the Earth realm and the rest of the Matrix apparatus, and saying, well, what the hell's going on here? Why is there a continuity of familiarity? Because that's what the Matrix banks on. It banks on us being familiar. It banks on our programming that we've received here. That belief system, or those belief systems that we've learned and garnered here, and what it does is tactically use those against us when we leave. That should be a concern for everyone. That should be a red flag for anyone looking into this. Because one thing all the researchers can agree on is that experiences are customized to the individual. But when those things are customized, there is also a bunch of data patterns that come with it. A very succinct set of things can occur, and yeah, you can throw the Allen wrench in there of a coma experience, but regardless, what we're hearing from Bethany is, and many other coma experiencers, is you're getting both ends of the spectrum, right? And now how long or how worse someone experiences it, well, that's on a case-by-case basis. Some of it is just, some of it's just downright as evil as you can get. And then some of it is half and half. Some of it might be 75-25. It varies. But these are things that really have to beg the question as to what the hell is going on. And what the hell is going on is that there's a clear connection between the Earth realm and what you can call heaven, or the Matrix, or hell, or whatever, right? The control structure that's not just here on Earth, but it's also seamlessly linked to outside the body and takes advantage of us. All right, we'll move along.
Close it is, and not close as in death close, but as in the spiritual world. So yeah, I think those are a few things that occurred to me.
When you were there and you saw the woman that you communicated with telepathically, when you looked at her, did she look like people, or did she look like a ghost version or an energy version of people?
No, everyone looked human. It was honestly like any other community, I guess, like any other city, except like I didn't see buildings. There was a wall, but it was also iridescent, and so it didn't look like a. I don't know how to explain it. It looked like an entrance, basically, like a walled entrance. Like I've seen pictures of Egypt, things like that, and it just looked like a natural wall.
Oh, I'm talking and I'm on mute. Okay. Sorry. Okay. We're back. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. All right. So I was rolling with the vibe too. All right. So I wanna just put this out there. Anyone who's really been diving into a lot of, especially NDEs, one of the common scenes that we see over and over and over again is the nature scene, the rolling hills, the stream, the running water, the lake, the river, but a very, very nature inspired scene. And then in the distance there could be something like a light, a door, or perhaps a wall with a door, but something like that attracts experiencers too. And some make it there and some don't. But some who do get there, what we hear over and over and over again is that they're not allowed to go through that. Like that they're just not allowed to move forward past that, which in my opinion is the point of no return, right? What else could it be? Because we see it so often. Now, something I'm like with the way she's kind of going through her testimony in this moment, it seems like that's what she's describing, but in a very, very like different way. It's like, oh, there was a wall. Like, and why does that stick out to her so much? Was that the point of no return and she was denied access? Perhaps she couldn't reach it. We don't know, but something tells me that what she's describing there is the equivalent of the nature scene with the door or the wall or the light or the unattainable, the denial by the Matrix for someone to move on.
In pictures of Egypt, things like that, and it just looked like a natural wall with just community people just passing by, walking by, going to and from, and no one looked old. I do remember that. Everyone kind of looked the same age, but they looked just like people.
Did you happen to glance down at your own body and see that you could still see your hands and feet?
Well, I did. When I first opened my eyes, I saw my feet. So, and I looked the same. So
before you went to the stairwell area, did you happen to have the thought, well, okay, this is heaven's pretty cool. I wonder what hell is like?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I was so content where I was. And I can remember being mad when I got pulled away. I was like, no, 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 no. I want to go back there. I was angry. And no, I didn't. I would have, like I said, I had fleeting thoughts of, my family, I'm in heaven. My family's, not dead.
Right.
But there was no desire to be anywhere but there.
Yeah, I found that fascinating that you said that, well, they'll be here pretty soon. So
yeah, it was just
because
like
of no time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting.
That's also comforting too. Like if you've lost somebody, that if you think that's where they are, then they're okay. You'll be there for them soon.
Okay, so going to take a quick break, be 5 minutes or less. So we'll be right back. Hang tight, and a little bit more to come. We're gonna finish the rest of this, and I think we'll probably get to the second video, which goes into a little more detail. She's kind of just sitting in front of a camera, doing makeup, and just shooting off the cuff about her experience. It's an interesting video. Yeah. So, all right. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, and see you shortly. Alright, we're going to be coming back. Less than a minute. Alright. Okay. I think we're back. Oh, no, we're not. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational or perhaps entertainment purposes only, whichever the law would prefer. Okay. So, before we move along, just want to remind you that I do have an email list in case something should ever happen to the channel. It's a good way for us to stay in touch. I also have an Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter where I send out notifications about an hour prior to each stream. Sometimes a little longer, but usually it's about an hour notice. And if you are on YouTube, Odysee, or Rumble, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell and selecting all. Sometimes notifications aren't received if you don't hit the all button. And I know with Odysee and Rumble, you can also get emails too. So they're really good about that stuff. YouTube, on the other hand, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know what to tell you. I also have a YouTube backup channel, and we multi-stream on the main channel on YouTube, Odysee, and Rumble every weekend. And then there's also memberships available on Odysee and Rumble, where we have a monthly members live stream every month, usually the last Sunday of every month. This month's a little different, but if you'd like to join, feel free to check out the links in the description, or by trying to find the join button or whatever button it may be. And there's a couple years worth of content there where we do deep dives. Your support's always appreciated but never expected. I know we're all going through a rough time period in the Matrix right now, so, you know, please, you know, it's only if you're interested and want to support the channel. It is available for a little extra content each month. And then there's also Stripe and Stream Elements and Streamlabs, all that stuff, if you'd like to support the channel that way. I want to give a big thank you to Knack for the very kind super chat. Appreciate you. Always good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's get back into it. All right.
Do you think that this changed you at all professionally as a singer?
Physically or spiritually?
Spiritually, like when you sing, do you think about it, or?
Like I said, I feel like the veil's a lot thinner.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and people say that when they hear from God, you know, it's not usually, I mean, some people, I guess, have encounters with God where they audibly hear God, but, you know, I don't audibly hear God, but I realize the way we communicate with him here is no different than the way we communicate with people there. It's all that knowing and hearing doesn't have to be audible. You hear it in your spirit, you hear it in your mind, you know. So I definitely think the chasm between how I worshiped before has gotten thinner because I feel like he's closer. I feel like I hear him better. I feel like I feel his heart for his people better.
Have you noticed that you have any abilities that you didn't have before? Like now you're more empathetic, or you can kind of see the future, or anything else, especially due to the veil being thinner?
Yeah, I do feel like I am much more empathetic. I feel like I can feel his heart for people when I talk to them. I definitely feel like, you know, and in my beliefs, we're all given the ability to see and hear and hear from God and know certain things. There's a gift of knowledge. There's a gift of prophecy. And I do feel like those gifts that he...
Let me tell you one damn thing. The gift of knowledge is bullshit. I worked my ass off. And as many of you out there have, worked my ass off. We've all worked our ass off to get where we're at. There was no God involved. There was no helping hand involved but ourselves. Our fiery essence within is what got us to where we're at today. Okay? Trust me. God is not, whatever the hell God is not sitting on the sidelines feeding anyone information unless it benefits the Matrix. Okay? Let's just get that straight. Okay? Nobody, and I mean nobody, was helping me along the way. Maybe, who knows? Maybe something out there a little bit, but I mean, I told you about the time I don't want to get too deep into it. I mean, but I still think that it's our fiery resolve within. Nothing holds your hand and helps you get to this point of truly questioning what the hell is going on here, because it's minefield after minefield after minefield of just deception and interruption, and everything's misleading. I mean, it takes a lot to get here. So when I hear this type of stuff, it gets me a little fired up. Not gonna lie. Okay? The reason we all got to this point is because we worked for it. Okay. We didn't just, I don't know. It's so, again, it's like, it's so easy to just have this blind belief in thought that, you know, God is with you at all times, or that your soul group or your guides or your teachers are all with you at all times. What about you? What about the effort that you put in to get to the point where you're at? Is that just nothing? It's not. No, it's everything. It's everything. But the one thing this place doesn't want you to realize is that it stomps on your sovereignty, and that sovereignty is the answer to liberation. Standing your own ground, doing your own thing, you know, instilling non-interference, and doing what you need to do for you, because you earned it. You got there. You question this reality at every turn, you know, day after day, month after month, year after year. And, you know, luckily we're in a time period where this place is exposing itself beyond belief. It's exposing itself up, down, left, and right for the parasitic SOB that it is. Okay? And it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. It really doesn't. Remember, I'm a guy with a high school diploma, you know, and a couple semesters of college. Okay? Not even a semester of college. I mean, it's a joke. All right? But this place has a way of just, you know, hey, oh yeah, it's God, or it's the professor, or it's this one, you know, it's the headmaster, or the, you know, the teacher, or the, you know, it's this authority or that authority, this authority or that authority. I mean, on and on and on and on and on. Anything that doesn't focus on you as a sovereign being is the answer, right? Yeah. Welcome to the Matrix, everybody.
Placed in myself are definitely more easily accessed, if that makes sense. I definitely feel like those gifts are stronger, for sure.
Do you feel like you have any negative after effects from this besides the physical pain and, you know, some of the PTSD stuff?
No, I mean, if I had to go through it again, I would.
If I had to go through it again, I would. Can you believe that? Look, Bethany. Would you really want? I mean, I know she leaves stuff out, but I mean, Bethany, come on, you'd go through this again? That's hard to wrap my head around. But hey, power of God.
Was hard on my family. I had 2 teenage daughters at the time. It was very hard on them. And you know, they've had to deal with that. You know, that caused them trauma as well, seeing their mother like that. And for a while, my son had a lot of separation anxiety because he basically lived with our friends for 2 months at a year old. But so I would hate to have to do it again, only because of them. But if I had to, I would. I feel like only good came out of it.
It's great.
And I feel like hopefully there's something in what happened to me that can help somebody else. And I've heard different things. So whether it's hearing that I didn't suffer, or hearing that there's something else after this, no matter what it is, that it would help somebody.
Do you feel like heaven is here? It's just like
All right, so it's comforting to just listen to what she says.
That I didn't suffer, or
and then look, her body. She didn't have the lucidity to realize the body wasn't suffering, but her spiritual mental state was suffering as a result of what happened to her. All right. And remember, she was talking about being in this loop, this fear, guilt, shame, entity loop with the cathedral. All right. And it just kept looping and looping and looping. All right. I don't, I mean, look, the human body and its pain receptors are horrible. Okay. It is about as bad as it gets. But being mentally abused to the max as a true essence being like Bethany experienced, and then coming forward and saying, oh, I do it again? And there's like, what's the reason that Bethany, you should go through this? You deserve better, my friend. You really do. You don't deserve to suffer like that. Nobody does. But yet this system exists.
Or hearing that there's something else after this, no matter what it is, that it would help somebody.
Do you feel?
No matter what exists out here. So see, this is the amazing part of experiencer cases, right? What do you think she's saying right here?
Something else after that I didn't suffer. Or
this is it right here. Listen.
Hearing that there's something else after this, no matter what it is, that
no matter what it is. What does that tell us, everybody? She doesn't even know. She doesn't know. And this is kind of the crux of my whole argument, is that I'm not sitting here saying that I have all the answers. Dan's not saying he has all the answers. Wayne Bush isn't saying that he has all the answers. And when I talk about Dan, it's Dan at overwatchproject.com, Overwatch channel, who is going through it right now. But, he's doing his thing, and it's not my story to tell, but it'll be out soon. And we're going to have some talks. But what I'm trying to say is, I don't sit here and pretend like I even know what the hell's going on. I have an idea. At least I think I have an idea. But at the same time, I think the argument that we present is based in common sense, logic, and that, if a system is constantly trying to stomp on your sovereignty as a creator being, and then that stomping carries over because of belief systems and systematic indoctrination from where you just came from, and when you pass, or if you have an NDE or some sort of traumatic experience, and those two worlds collide and connect, then it has a right to be under scrutiny. Again, I don't pretend to have all the answers, but the only answer I can see is being viable. And so this is why the Ikes of the world will tell you, oh, go to 5D. 4D is a deception too, but 5D on the up, 5D is where it's at. See, what kind of answer is that? What kind of answer is that? That is a weird answer. When someone could kind of, jackal out of your work and then pop it in a book and then give you everything but sovereignty, liberation, and non-interference. I mean, oops, I said it. Sorry. Just one of those nights, I guess I'll let the cat out of the bag. Anyways, it's, again, I don't pretend to have all the answers, but the one answer that only makes sense in the scenario that we're all in is non-interference, sovereignty, and liberation. It's the same thing, and creating our own realm, protecting ourselves, putting up a shield of protection, all right? Making sure that we're not interacting with anyone or anything, okay? And we could say it over and over and over again. But what else is the solution? Does anyone here think that because it was written in a book by Ike that, oh, yeah, 4D is a deception too. 3D is clearly deception. You're living in it. 4D is a deception. But 5D, on the other hand, well, that's the pathway. How does he know? How does he know? If he was honest with himself and being honest with the books that he wrote, he would say as much. He would put right in there and say, I don't know. And, you know, enough of Wayne's work and Dan's work and my work was applied in his thinking and in his books that it clearly he would know about the sovereign decision, but yet it's not there. That book, point blank, was a response to our work. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Anyways, all right. It just, I you know, it really drives me nuts to see an effort. I mean, it's a clear effort by the Matrix, whether he knows it or not. That's besides the point, right? It's a clear effort in our faces to derail the intentions of others who see that something's wrong here, just like Hinduism does, just like Buddhism does, just like Gnosticism does. I mean, we can go down the list, right? The ones that lead you right up to the cliff, and then, you know, right before you're about to get the answer, they, you know, cap you at the knees, right? They steal your sovereignty away. They steal your essence from the answer. All right. So it's just, it really irks me to see that type of stuff, especially when there are so many of us that just want to be left the hell alone. And yet books like his are designed to pull you right back in, to keep you distracted. What is really it? Anyone who's familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, what is Ike saying? Oh, go through the bardos. That's what he's saying. That's the response. Okay? If you really want to boil it down, he's saying, go through the bardo realms, get lost. Trust me. You know, 3D is deception, 4D is deception, 5D is where it's at. You're good to go. And then, of course, he, you know, look, he's good at what he does. Anyways, well, cat's out of the bag.
Something else after this, no matter what it is, that it would help somebody.
Do you feel like heaven is here? It's just like a dimensional change, like as if you're changing the station on a radio.
Absolutely. I absolutely do. I feel like it's so thin. And, you know, the Bible talks about how we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spirits. And these things going on around us, I think, are...
Okay, so she's... we don't wrestle with... what the hell's the phrase? We don't wrestle with... hold on. I'll figure it out.
These things going on around us, I think, are closer... Closer is the only way I know how to
principalities
to
and powers in high places.
It's going on as we're living.
Not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers in high places. Something like that, right? So here she is, openly admitting that. But how it cannot be interpreted as applying to, for lack of a better term, the astral realm is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. So here she is just saying, here's a warning shot, but it only applies to Earth, or it only applies to if perhaps you don't fall under a certain religious philosophy. I don't know. I mean, that's what it seems like.
Lives. So it's, I do believe it. You know, I don't understand the physics of it or any of that, but I do feel like it's a blink of an eye away.
I think one of the things that you may be saying, and which is good to know, is that maybe your loved ones who have passed, they didn't really suffer in their transition. They just kind of moved from one transition to another. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
by the way, guys, I'm transitioning.
They just kind of moved from one transition to another. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely how it was for me, even though, like I said, my husband witnessed it. He saw me suffering. He said, you know, I'm gasping for every breath and had, you know, just days of that. So,
oh, that's so terrible.
I definitely feel like it may be there for me. It was definitely different. It was a completely different, spiritually, what was happening was completely different than what it looked like. I never felt a moment of pain or struggle at all.
Yeah, I think that's...
It's just think about like the loosh fest that's going on here. She's going through what she's going through. Her body's going through a very, very rough situation. And then you have the husband who, because they didn't live next to or close by a hospital that could handle her level of care that was necessary, that she had to be jumped around multiple times. All right. And the husband has to sleep in a van while she's in ICU, worried sick about her. And yeah, she admits that, you know, she didn't have the bodily pain or the, you know, whatever was going on in the physical. And she was out doing her thing, but she was stuck in this NDE coma loop experience, hell-like experience. And then she got the, you know, the good side of it, you know, both duality. And just imagine if you're the husband, right? Imagine if you're her children. Like the amount of psychological wearing down and damage that does to them is inexcusable. Inexcusable. Obviously, it has nothing to do with Bethany. It just, well, it has everything to do with Bethany's health problems at the time. But, you know, it's just the nature of this realm. It's embedded into the fabric that we all experience this on some level. It can be to varying degrees, but we all experience it some way, somehow. And, you know, poor Bethany and her husband and her children, they were put through the ringer in this time of her life. Just think about it. She deserves better. Her husband deserves better. Her kids deserve better. But yet, this supposed all-loving, all-knowing, all-compassionate, all-empathetic God that is looking out for us every single moment of every single day can't fix this problem. You know, this has been going on a long time. It's not new. You know, the human experience, the human condition, the inherent flaws of the human condition have been going on forever. Or for as far back as we have records for. Why does this system seem to get its rocks off with sacrifice? Human and animal sacrifice. Why is that? Why is it such a prevalent thing? Again, go back as far as we have records for. It's there every step of the way. You know, how humanity is stomped on. Why are sacrifices such a big thing? Why does the parasite class use it? Because they are giving it what it wants in exchange for whatever. Riches, status, whatever the case may be. But that's something that's been around. All these things, you know, just the piss poor design of the human body is good enough. Then you add to it like that sacrifice seems to be a, you know, oh, no big deal. No big deal. You do this and you'll benefit. Or you're just doing it because you're, you know, a drone and feel that it's necessary. Whether you're a willing or unwilling participant, knowingly or unknowingly, well, that's a whole other thing entirely.
True for a lot of experiencers, and even most of my guests that had something traumatic like being hit by a car or a bus or something like that, they seem to describe being out of their body even before the impact happened.
Yep. Exactly. That's the way it felt, and must have been because that was on the first day, and I technically, you know, didn't die until 3 days later on the third day. So yeah, I don't know, you know, what happened, but I know I didn't suffer.
Do you feel like the woman who you communicated with was like possibly a guardian angel or someone that you knew on the other side, or do you have any idea about that?
I've thought about it because she did look like my aunt, and I thought maybe because like I said, everyone looked the same age, so maybe it was a relative that I just never met. Because she did look like my family, you know, my aunt. So I have my guesses that might be what it is. That it was a relative. I also knew who was there. So my husband's grandfather. And all I can describe it is just like I said, it's a knowing. It's just like you have knowledge. No one said anything. No one did anything. You just know. So I knew, you know, my grandmother was there. I knew my husband's grandfather was there. And I didn't see them, but I knew. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just kind of had a knowing of that there were people there that I loved and people there that my husband loved.
Do you think it's possible that your heaven experience was the NDE, and then you getting pulled into the stairwell incident was like you got pulled out of heaven and kind of pulled out of your NDE, and that whole incident repeating over and over were more hallucinations due to the intubation and the medication?
Right. I definitely think that's what happened, because if I line my experiences up with what happened, that's definitely what happened. It was when I was in a coma under a chemical sedation. That's when that was happening. So I was very much alive. I was being artificially kept alive. And I think at that point, I don't understand all the mysteries of God. I don't know how vulnerable we are in those places where we're not really here, but we're not really there either,
So I find, this is a very revealing moment, just like what we heard earlier, right? It's, she doesn't know, she doesn't have all the answers. Nobody does. And that's like a common theme throughout, with the exception of everything's all love, and we hear that all the time, right? But it's clearly a manipulation tactic. We see that over and over and over and over and over again. So if you don't know, and we hear open admissions like this constantly, it's like, I don't know, or I don't have all the answers, or this or that. Like, I don't, and we shouldn't expect them to, because the Matrix sure as hell isn't going to provide it. But in the same breath, how much are you going to put up with? I mean, why should we just blindly believe? I mean, I know I keep saying that, but this is kind of driving the point home. It's like you have an open admission by a coma experiencer and a coma loop experiencer, where she's experienced both ends of the spectrum. And with a religious background, and when you really boil it down, she is telling us this.
Of God, I don't know how vulnerable we are.
I don't know how vulnerable we are. We are so vulnerable that the Matrix capitalizes off of us and customizes the experience to each and every one of us. If that doesn't scream vulnerability, if the love bomb doesn't scream vulnerability, then I don't know what does. Seriously. It's so in our face. But we see this time and time again. Some have this, they claim the all-knowing. Like, everything is all-knowing. I was all-knowing. But yet, when you really listen to their testimonies, there's an open admission of they don't know. That's it. I mean, it's there. Time and time again. The patterns don't lie. The patterns show some sort of deception, whether how deep it all goes and whether we're kind of on the mark with this or that or this or that, who knows? But I think we got at least a rough outline, a rough draft about what the hell's going on here. And it all points towards deception and squashing of sovereignty. So what's the response to that? Sovereign intention, non-interference, shielding yourself, creating your own realm, liberation, and then seeing what the hell happens. Because until we can get to the see what the hell happens phase, we'll just be spinning our wheels or be vulnerable and open to manipulation by this system that clearly doesn't have our best interest at heart.
Of God, I don't know how vulnerable we are in those places where we're not really here, but we're not really there either, but I do think it was definitely when I was in the coma that those things kept happening. Because again, I kept waking up and then it would happen again. And so I knew where I was. And I had even at one point begged, I tried to convey to my parents and my husband, don't let them put me back under because it kept happening. I was crying. Like, all they could really see was that I was crying, and I was trying to tell them, don't, I couldn't communicate it effectively, but that's what I was inside telling them not to do. Of course they had to. I mean, it wasn't, it's what they had to do to treat me, but yeah.
Yeah. Cause I feel more like,
okay, so Stone White seems to be having a rough go at it. I just wanted to let you know that I empathize with where you're at, but I think it's important, and really Take the Red Pill nailed it. And they say, I stick around because the stronger I get here, the easier it will be for me to never come back. That's really what it's about. Yeah, we all wake up every morning and go to sleep every night. And I think it's important to still find the good in life. Still find the good in day-to-day existence, whatever that may be, no matter how big or how small. I talk about this all the time. Nature can heal. Getting out there in nature, there's something about nature that has a healing component. Regardless of where you live, getting some sun, feeling the fresh air, walking for however long you can do it, camping, going out to eat, listening to music, going to concerts, watching a movie, playing games, whatever the case, whatever you enjoy, painting, drawing, whatever, making jewelry, whatever you find or whatever you enjoy. But at the end of the day, there is something about the nature aspect to this realm that works wonders. The other thing I'll say, Stone, is that affirmations help. Instilling a daily affirmation practice. We are programmable beings. Whatever type of affirmations, whether it's your own script or somebody else's script, these are things that can help you get over that hump. But the one thing, that I learned in this experience and going through what you're going through right now is that you can't let it eat you away. You can't. You just can't. You can't allow it to consume you. It's just not healthy. It's just not healthy. And you deserve better. Otherwise, you're kind of, dare I say it, handing yourself on a silver platter to the system mechanics, giving it exactly what it wants. So do you want to give it what it wants, or do you want to stand up and push on through? Remember, this is your last time. And, use the tools that are here to help you against it, against the matrix. I know it's difficult, but the one thing I swear by is daily affirmations. It's... I get it. I really do. I get how everyone gets to that point at some period in their life when they're researching this type of thing. But at the same time, the last thing you want to do is just let it consume you. It's just not healthy. Just not healthy. It's good to be aware and see what's going on out there and do your research, but it's also important to take breaks. It's also important to get out there into the fresh air, get that sun, take some walks, maybe do some breathing exercises, whatever you got to do for you. But that has to come from a drive within and a reconciliation about what we're in, what we're dealing with. But, once you kind of know the general makeup of what the human body responds to, what the matrix expects you and I and everyone else here to respond to, which is feeding it creative energy, feeding it loosh. Once that's there, like, the last thing we should be doing is giving it exactly what it wants. So I hope that helps a little bit, Stone, and, hang in there, my friend. Do what you got to do for yourself, but don't let the bastards win. Don't let them win. And look out for you, because you're the one that matters in the end.
you were in heaven and then you got pulled out into kind of like the black void, which is kind of like when people first pop out of their body, kind of like a consciousness separated from their body, but not really going anywhere. And then I don't feel like you went to hell or demons. I just felt like all of a sudden you started going into these hallucination things.
Right. And I don't feel like I was actually there either, because in heaven, I could feel everything. Like I could feel, I don't know, I could just feel everything. I could feel, I could smell, I could hear. And there it was, all my senses were kind of dulled down. Couldn't smell really. And I knew the things there couldn't hurt me. So I felt like if I was, actually there, I would have had a different experience than I had in heaven. It was definitely, there was definitely a difference of feeling. One was definitely more, what's the word I'm looking for? The other place was kind of more surreal. And then heaven was definitely more, things were more tangible there. I'll just like that way.
If you could give advice to anybody who had lost somebody, how would you tell them that their loved ones are okay on the other side?
I would just say that I know, first of all, that I didn't feel my own suffering. It was a very fast transition, and that where I was, there was nothing that I needed. There was nothing that I wanted. I was perfectly content, perfectly at peace. And I know for me, I lost my brother 3 years ago. And to know, I think it just helps with accepting that, and I believe I'll see him again. And so I know that he's not even waiting on me because, again, I think we see time so linear, and I think the afterlife is bigger than that. I think God is bigger than that. And I think it's much more simple, but also much more complicated than we understand. I think we overcomplicate the simple things and simplify the really, really complicated, big stuff. I would just, if it's anything like my experience, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. And a very close friend of mine lost her daughter, her 5-year-old, and I know it gives her a lot of peace also. So I think faith plays a big part in that. I mean, I think you have to, some people will see this and say that never happened. Or some people say these types of things and saying, well, it was this firing and that firing, and that's fine. I mean, but
the one thing I've come to, I guess, accept in life is, those that want extraordinary evidence and proof of something that cannot be explained in a material sense, I have no time for them. I just don't care. It's up to, again, it's up to everyone on an individual level to get to that point, right? There's just so much information. There's so much data out there that, what's going on here seems pretty clear cut. Reincarnation is a fact. All these experiencer type cases, they are factual. Whether someone's, you're always going to get a few bad apples who lie here and there, but overall, the collective is sharing authentic experiences. And these are things that no matter how much you throw at them in this world, this realm, that you cannot prove them unless you go outside the box. Or you experience something for yourself, which that's where something like out-of-body experiences can occur, or astral projection, or whatever, however you want to label it, right? I mean, technically, astral projection is induced or an induced out-of-body experience, and then OBEs are generally something that comes around randomly. You know, it's like, oh, I had an out-of-body experience. But if you want to get technical, astral projection would fall under the category, or even OBE, right? I mean, but let's just say astral projection is something someone is trying to achieve and get to experience because they're aware of methods that they can implement in their life to get to that point, to leave the body. But it all falls under the same umbrella in the end. You're leaving your body, right? But until someone experiences something like a heightened meditation session, until those things are experienced for oneself, someone has to want it. That individual has to want it. And not you, not anyone listening, has to prove a goddamn thing to anybody. All right? I mean, you know, I had a really enjoyable conversation with Dr. Moody. It was great. But, you know, like when I was listening to some of what he said, when we were talking, and, you know, and I get it. Like, I get where he's coming from. He's invested his life into this, and it's just trying to get others to see through everything and think bigger. And he has an incredible plan to try and achieve that. And whether that comes to fruition or not, and you guys are going to hear that when I get the interview out, but his plan to do that is amazing. Like, it blew me away. But, like, to me, it just had Ian Stevenson vibes. Dr. Ian Stevenson, who was, you know, the very, very well-known reincarnation researcher involved with the University of Virginia Division of Perceptual Studies. You know, everything that he did, his books, you know, you read them, and and even he openly admitted, you know, he was trying to get acceptance in the mainstream. And I see Dr. Moody doing that in a very interesting way. I'm not at all taking away what his goal is, and how incredible his process is to prove that to others. But at the same time, it's like, isn't that kind of like, I mean, you know, this system proves over and over and over again that if it doesn't want something proven, and especially in the West, when you're proving something that puts everything into play, especially the scientific method. Well, do you think the system's going to accept that? It's not. It's just not going to happen. They're going to cherry pick and do what they got to do. I mean, think about it. With Dr. Ian Stevenson, he figured out the biological connection with reincarnation. You can't get much closer than that, short of, you know, I don't know, having an astral camera, you know, from the process of past lives and that just follows someone and enters the womb each time and is record. I mean, well, they do record everything, but you get what I'm saying, right? I mean, and being able to like somehow provide evidence that way. I mean, it's like the expectations that this current system, at least in the West, expects of researchers is ridiculous. And all I'm trying to drive at is that you don't owe anyone anything. You owe yourself everything. And that's all we can do. That's all we can do. It's just take care of ourselves, look out for ourselves, you know, be kind and decent and caring and just look out for us. And of course our loved ones. But, you know, if that involves you feeling the need to prove this or prove that and they're just not receptive, stop. Don't give your energy away. Don't waste your time. Or, you know, maybe revisit it, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and see if maybe their thought process has evolved a little bit. But in the end, something I say all the time on this channel, this is a individual journey. It is up to us as individuals to figure this out and liberate ourselves. We cannot take anyone by the hand and bring them along with us. Because if they have, you know, pre-baked, pre-cooked, whatever belief systems that align with this system, they're going to have that customized experience. See it all the time, right? So in the end, you're barking up the wrong tree if someone's not receptive. I mean, that's the harsh, sad truth of it all. But does that mean they'll never get out? Absolutely not. I think we all get out at some point. How many lifetimes that entails, who knows? But you know, don't drive yourself crazy in an effort to convince others. That's all I'm trying to say. It's I mean, it's incredible to see it in Dr. Stevenson's work and then hear it from Moody and what he talks about and even Jim Tucker. I mean, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, you know, there comes a point when, you know, you gotta drain the water from the well, and whatever's left is taking care of you.
When you experience it for yourself, there's no doubt in your mind. And I know there's no doubt in my mind that I was at peace and that the people I love were at peace also.
All right, I'm going to switch gears on you, and I just want to promote you. You have a YouTube channel. What is your YouTube channel called?
I do. It's called Bethany Schmidt Aesthetics. And if you search my name, Bethany Schmidt, on YouTube, you'll find it. I'm a makeup artist. Mm-hmm. That's my day job. So
that's great. And you're also on Instagram and Facebook, right?
That's right. It's also Bethany Schmidt Aesthetics. And also for anything related to this stuff, my direct messages are always open, and I always welcome anybody to message me if they have any questions.
Oh, great. Is there anything else that you're working on that you would like us to, you know, share with everybody?
Not at the moment. Hopefully we'll be making some new music soon. And if you follow me on my social medias, you'll be notified of when that.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is throw up one more quick portion of her video, right? Let's see what have we got? Yeah, what the hell? We'll go for a longer one. So there's probably about 20 minutes. Okay, so we're going to go into one last video before we wrap things up for the evening. Okay. I just have to get it queued up. Sorry, I got to bypass some music. Don't want to be dealing with any copyright stuff. So just bear with me just a little bit here. All right. So here we go. All right. So this one's not going to be as long, but it's interesting. You're going to hear a little bit of a recap of some of the stuff you've already heard with some maybe interesting info. And, you know, well, she does makeup tutorials. I know, but, you know, what's up with the nails? Okay. Oh my god, I did it again. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. Jesus. I'm gonna have to edit this video. Christ.
It started.
Hold on. Alright, here we go. Sorry, guys.
Tina, the Fancy Faces hummingbird palette for this look. Let's get started. So if you remember from part 1, I left off. I'm in wherever I was. It was just the most peaceful, amazing, wonderful place I've ever seen, smelled, heard in my entire life. And I kind of got the feeling from the people walking around there that I was supposed to kind of go the way they were going. So that's what I started to do. But as I did that, all of a sudden, like I said in the first video, it just felt like I had a rope around my waist and someone snatched me. And within a couple seconds, it was pitch black. So I try to get my bearings about me, and I'm like, where am I at? What's happening? I didn't understand what was going on. I'm trying to look around, but all I see is black, just black. But soon my eyes began to refocus, and I just realized that where I'm at isn't pitch black. It's just very, very dim. Now, at the time, I had no idea how long I had been wherever I was before this. It was like there was just no sense of time whatsoever there. So now I'm thinking, how long was I there? Where am I at now? How long am I going to be here? So as my eyes begin to focus, I realize I am standing on what's like a stone staircase. And as my eyes continue to focus, it's like things start to come into picture and I'm able to see things a little bit more clearly. So when I look around, it almost looked like a movie where it was like a nuclear fallout. It was very dark, gray, just desolate. And the feelings I had being there were all the exact opposites of the place I was before. So it was like this night and day. So where I was before, it was contentment and just peace and acceptance and love. And this place, it was like lonely, just void. That's the best way I could describe it. Just void of any good feeling. So I see that I'm actually at the top of this staircase, like I said, and I decide I'm going to follow it down where it was like spiraled down. So I'm walking down this staircase and it gets to where it kind of opens up, and all I see is this enormous looking cathedral. Is the only way I know how to describe it. But it was just what was left of a cathedral, if that makes sense. It was stone and it looked burnt out, and it just kind of looked destroyed. And I also noticed there was another staircase that went even further down. And so I decide I'm gonna go see what's down there. So I start following this other staircase down, and it's going down, and it's going like under the cathedral, under the ground I'm on. And I just keep walking. And just as I'm about to like stop, and because there was nothing, it opened up into this very, very long hall. And it was very, very dimly lit. I could barely see, but I decided to keep going. So as I keep going, I'm noticing, and I'm not going to go a whole lot into this because it really freaks me out, and it really seemed very, very real in the moment. So much so that I'll go into it later, but I had some issues afterwards because of what I saw, and it felt like I was really experiencing it. So, but I realized I was almost in like caves, but the caves almost looked like a prison cell, but not with like regular metal bars or anything. It was almost like, the way I described it to my family was almost like, okay, if you know what stalactites and stalagmites were, but they were coming down from the ceiling and then up from the ground and like forming these cells. And inside these cells were these creatures. And I am not going to describe them because I have to think about them if I describe them, and it's not going to make for a good night for me. But again, with these creatures, just like the people that I had talked to before, wherever I was, and I'm going to give you my summation of what I think happened, but they didn't use words. You just heard them. You knew what they were saying. It's like telepathy. I love this palette. So these creatures, I can't...
Hey guys, just so you know, I my palettes, I'm running a little low. Never mind.
Even begin to describe to you, other than to say, I've never seen anything like it. There is no horror movie, no special effects creature I have ever seen that even came close. They were big. They looked like men, but not men. A man-like creature. I don't know. That's... And what these things said to me were what was most terrifying, because every horrible, evil intent that they had for me was what they were telling me they were going to do to me. And there were, Phoebe, you're not going to do anything. And they would cause flashes of the scenes of them doing it to me, like into my mind. It was the most terrifying thing. Like I said, I don't really like talking about it. It was very traumatic. And, years later now, it still gets to me to talk about. But so finally, I'm just like, I got to get out of here. So I make my way back up the staircase, and I decide to just like sit down on the stairs. And I'm sitting on the stairs, I've got my head down in my hands, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And I hear this voice behind me, and it says, but you belong here. And I turn around, like I look, and there's no one there. So I just start crying. I start bawling. And this voice just starts accusing me of all these things. All the things I have ever done, like my kids, my addiction, just everything I ever wanted to forget, he's bringing back up. I say he because it was a male voice, I don't know. But it wasn't a threatening voice. It was like, it was a nice voice, like a, not a nice voice because the things he was telling me weren't nice, but it was like a smooth voice. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't like a growl or angry or threatening. It was just this voice that was accusing me of all this stuff. And as he's accusing me of this stuff, it's all replaying in my mind like I was there again. And that's what really got me and frightened me, because again, all this stuff I had done seemed so real and like I was completely just right back there. And again, I'm terrified because as he would say these things, that feeling of despair and loneliness and being alone just got stronger and stronger and stronger. So I'm freaking out. So this happened again and again and again and again until I could not take it anymore. I remember thinking, this is torture, and I'm crying, just sobbing. And all of a sudden, I look up and I'm laying in a hospital bed. Well, I didn't know where I was, but I've been in enough hospitals that I know I'm in a hospital bed. And I see this nurse leaning over me doing something, and she has long black hair, and she had a necklace on. And I remember that because when she would lean over, like her little pendant would kind of be right at my eye line. And I could kind of feel myself coming to, but as soon as that happened, it started to fade back to black. And I remember like in my head screaming, no, 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 like I can't go back to where I was. And the next thing I know, I'm right back at that cathedral, and it starts all over again. And y'all, this happened day after day after day, except for me, there was no sense of time. So it's like it's just going on forever. So
I should have just had this audio version, but yeah, it day after day after day, dealing with the same thing, the same repetitive motion where she enters the cathedral, the burnt out cathedral, goes through the entity harassment with the fear, guilt, shame, calls out for Jesus, and then rewind back to the burnt out cathedral. And then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Except for me, there was no sense of time. So it's like it's just going on forever. So as this keeps happening, and I'm not going to repeat the things that he said to me because I feel like it just may be too triggering for some of you, but I knew the intent was for me to give up my will to live. I knew the...
Okay, so isn't that interesting that that it was about giving up her will to live? Her will to live where? You know, there's only one explanation. Back on Earth. That was her will to live. That's a Matrix narrative right there. It's like if she's happy and content, not saying in this part she is, but in when she supposedly went to heaven, like we heard in the first video with the interview with Jeff, it, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought.
For some of you, but I knew the intent was for me to give up.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I'm sorry. The intent to give up. So, sorry. It's getting a little late here. Gonna have to wrap things up soon, but, the intent to give up. But then if she's aware of the intent to give up, that means she has a connection, a pipeline to her physical body, to her earth realm experience. And kind of like if we rewind to what I was talking about earlier, we see over and over and over again how this type of thought is implanted to keep us here, to keep her here. So if you have an experience, whether they're going to roll out the family, the friends, your children, your husband, your wife, whatever. In her case, I would imagine they're going to throw the book. But she has this kind of inner knowing this interconnection to the earth realm experience, and she's going through the motions, whether they're negative or positive, it doesn't matter. She's going through it and experiencing it, and well, it only benefits one party, and that's the Matrix.
My will to live. I knew the intent was to wear me down, and it was working. So after what felt like an eternity of this going on, I was just starting to lose it. And I would scream for him to shut up, and it just kept going. It was like a record playing. And when I say sobbing, like hyperventilating, sobbing, heaving. And I don't know why I didn't think of it before. I just remember thinking about my grandmother. And my grandma was this old little Southern Christian lady, and the woman had the faith of Job. And I remember a song about calling on Jesus. So in my heaving and crying and sobbing, I just screamed out the name Jesus. And when I did, just like that rope that was around me before, I heard a different voice say, "I'm here." And I felt like someone just lifted me up from underneath my arms. And I opened my eyes, and I was in a hospital room. I was not on a vent, which I didn't know I was to begin with. But I just knew when I woke up, when I would fade back to consciousness, I knew I couldn't talk. And I knew I couldn't move. And that's because I had a paralytic in my system, because I was on a forced air ventilator. So I wake up and I see my mom and my dad and my husband come in. And they're all crying, and I'm crying because I was so happy to see them. And they couldn't stay long because it's ICU. But before my husband left, I told him, I said, whatever you do not let them put me back under. Because I was so terrified of being back in that place. So evidently, the days start going by, and I gave my nurse a message from her grandfather who had passed away. I barely remember any of this stuff. I had a message for my brother. I don't know what exactly happened there, but the only thing about the nurse I remember is that apparently her grandfather, she was young. She couldn't have been older than like 24, but I remember she was Hispanic and she was gorgeous. And I told her that her grandpa told me to tell her he sees her and he's so proud of what she had become. And she apparently started just like bawling. And if you've been a nurse, you've seen and heard some stuff like that, just stuff you can't explain. But anyway, I was also very, very confused. I still didn't know, like I said in the last video, what had happened. And it was at this point, it's been a week or whatever, and my mind's still not right. And that's when they started thinking, she should kind of be, not this bad still as far as memory and cognitive function. And the whole time I'm still trying to learn to walk. Again, I had a feeding tube, an NG tube, and I had a PICC line in. I still have the scars. But yeah, I wasn't progressing the way they would have liked me to. And I know it was really, really freaking out my husband. But I just remember being so fearful and so scared still. One night I woke up, there was like this balloon. Friends had brought me a balloon. Just the shape of it and the way it was moving in the corner of the room, it was really dark. It looked like someone in the room, and I get paranoid and I'm freaking out. And then I wanted coffee, of course. So my husband leaves to go to Dunkin' Donuts, which is literally right across the street. And he said he wasn't even out of the parking lot before I called him. And I was like, where are you? I thought it had been hours. It was a mess, y'all. I thought there were people I kept hearing a baby cry one night, and I kept thinking the hospital was stealing people's babies. I mean, just the most awful.
See, this was a part that was interesting. it begs the question, not saying it was happening, but that's quite an interesting thought that she had, or potential experience that Bethany had, that the hospital is stealing babies. And when you hear what she says next, listen.
The wall, just the most off the wall stuff.
Off the wall stuff, but
I remember these things like they happened. It's not like a distant memory or dream. It's like it happened.
It's like it happened. It begs the question, was what Bethany experienced, was she outside the body and saw this happening? We know this world is a freak show and that stuff like that does occur. I mean, I'm only pointing it out, that it's possible. It sure as hell wouldn't be surprising. So I really wonder if Bethany saw some shit and, well, why would she say this?
Just off the wall stuff. And I remember these things like they happened. It's not like a distant memory or dream. It's like it happened.
It's like it happened. And we know for a fact that these types of things do happen. Whether that's what Bethany experienced, who knows? But the fact that she followed it up with that statement, it's like all the end of ears. It's like, I just knew. I knew, I experienced it. I know what happened. And they say it with full conviction. Who knows, right? But I thought this part was interesting, so that's why I'm playing this video. I mean, I'm sorry, but, let's, at least, it's up for consideration as a possibility.
In those moments, it was like it was really happening to me. So again, like I said in the other video, they're doing MRIs, they're doing tests, and they're just like, this may be permanent. And they knew I was going to need months of rehab. They had planned on sending me to a rehab facility. As most of you know, I'm a singer, and it wasn't looking like I was going to sing again because I still couldn't talk right. I couldn't swallow right. It was just, I was having all these problems in my throat, in my head. I was extremely weak. So it was just a waiting game. Now at this point, I've been in the hospital for a month. Like I said, there's no signs of it getting better. I'm kind of able, I'm still having to use the putty chair right beside my bed with the help of my husband because I can't walk. They had started trying to get me to eat something like yogurt, and that's when they did the swallow study because I just couldn't swallow. And everything tasted like metal. I had no taste, and I was constantly scared. And I barely slept. It's like I didn't get tired. It's like I didn't get sleepy. I still have that problem. It would always get the scariest at night. It's like during the day I was okay, but at night when I had to go to sleep, I would get terrified. And I would even have my husband read the Bible next to me because I was so, read it to me because I was so scared. I was just so confused and felt like I woke up a different person. And then one night, now remember, I think I had been in a car accident. Oh, that is one thing I will include that the voice was telling me when I was in the dark place, was that I had been in a car accident and that my 1-year-old son had died and that if I lived anyway, I was going to be paralyzed. And what good would I be to anyone if I was paralyzed? Now we know that's a lie, and we know that even if that was the case, I still could have had an awesome life. But that was another thing he was using to get me to kind of give up my will to live. So
how sick is that? How sick is that? Seriously, think about it. She didn't go into as much detail, and that's why I'm playing the second clip. She only had an hour with Jeff, so it's interesting to hear a little more detail. even though she touched upon it a little bit, but at least I think she did. But seriously, if you're going through something like this and entities or the Matrix programming is inserting these thoughts into your astral head that, oh, you know, like, oh, you got a car accident and your 1-year-old died. How sick and twisted is that? Where's the love, right? Where's this love, this creator, you know, that you know, is always looking out for everybody? Where is it in this? Why is there no interference being run to help Bethany in her time of need so that she does not have that running through her head or through her thought process while she's going through one of the most traumatic things that she's ever dealt with in her life? Seriously. I think it's just as low as it can get.
So I'm thinking I've been in a car accident, and that's why I'm in the state I'm in. And my husband's reading the Bible to me, and he said he looked over, and I just had a different look on my face. And he said, "Babe, do you know why you're here?" And they would all ask me that a lot because it's a way to gauge where my mind was at. It's one of the cognitive questions. And I said, yeah, I got sick. And the look on his face, just, I don't know how to describe it. He was shocked. Well, at that same time, I had a good friend back at my church. And for all y'all that don't know, if someone needs prayer, sometimes you'll stand in for somebody. And that just means you stand in their place. Prayer is said over you for whatever that person needs. And my friend, she didn't even let him get started. She walked right up to the front and she's like, I'm standing in for Bethany. I want y'all to pray right now. Because this had been going on now for a couple weeks that I just, I was still just having so many problems. And I'm really thankful that they did that for me, because in that moment, it was like a light switch went off in my brain and I was totally thinking right again. It was just a random evening. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't praying. I mean, my husband was reading the Bible to me, but it was legitimately another miracle. So he asks me, babe, do you know why you're here? And I said, yeah, I got sick, and not the eye to be getting upset. So the doctors come in, doing their rounds in the morning, and my husband tells them what happened, and he starts asking me the questions, talking to my husband, and they're just like, we have no idea what to say. Like, okay, well, all right. So, I'm still getting my heparin shots in my belly and I'm still getting all my meds. And I was like, I want to eat. So the doctor was like, yeah, you can't leave until you get that NG tube out. So you need to be eating before you can leave and we get that thing out of you. That day, they took out my PICC line. I still have my IV, and they also set up physical therapy to prepare me to go home. And they thought it would be about another few weeks, but that looked like I was finally on the right track. And so when they're doing physical therapy, they take me and they were like, can you stand up? I was able to hold my weight standing up, took a couple steps back to the bed and sat down. I hadn't walked, since I had gotten there. And she was just like, oh my God. And they're like, okay, well, we'll try it again in a little bit. So they would randomly come in and, and I was able to have my husband walk me to the bathroom where I didn't have to go in the room anymore. I was able to eat soft foods, not like I didn't jump right back into solids, because you can't do that after your stomach not eating for weeks and weeks. So it was mainly a lot of yogurt and Boost, which is disgusting. So the following day, physical therapy brings this thing that's like, it's 3 steps and then a little platform and then a ramp on the other side. And it's got handrails. And they wanted me to be able to walk up the 3 steps and walk down an incline without needing help. So it was a little rough the first day, but the second day I did it, and everyone's blown away. They just couldn't believe how everything turned around. Day 2, they took my NG tube out, and I ate 3 different meals. Again, mainly yogurts, booze, whatever. But everything seemed to be working normally. Before that switch went off in my head, I couldn't eat, I couldn't walk, I couldn't write, I couldn't talk, I couldn't swallow, and I walked out of the hospital on my own 3 days later once that switch went off. After
See that right there. Just think about what she's been through, right? You can take a combination of both videos that we went over and ask yourself, how the hell did she recover so quickly? This was predestined for her. This is a connection that was supposed to happen before, probably, in her pre-birth planning. If I had to guess. But even if it wasn't, let's just say it was like a branch of her pre-birth planning, and it occurred. The fact that she could recover so quickly after going through everything that she went through. I've seen this happen before, and it's pretty mind-blowing. Doesn't happen in a lot of cases, but I'd be interested to hear the number. That's a question for Dr. Moody right there, right? What's the percentage of spontaneous healings? Those things do occur. They really do. So, can't sit here and laugh at them because I wouldn't say they're a big data point, but maybe we could say 10%. If we're being generous, maybe it's more, maybe it's less, I don't know, but let's say 5 to 10% do have spontaneous healings. Could be 20%, I don't know, but let's just say between 5 and 20%, like where something like that could occur, where they defy the medical community and all of a sudden they're walking out when they shouldn't be and doing just fine. There are 100%, there are healing, quote unquote, healing centers, and they can impact experiencers to the point where they do something like what Bethany did, where she was able to walk out on her own. Now, that doesn't take away from her hard work and efforts that she made to get to that point, because that's certainly not what I'm saying, but based on her testimony, it's clear that there was assistance. There's a case that I still haven't covered that's been sitting in my to-do list for probably 3 years now, and it's about a South American man who was on a motorcycle, and the entire experience is in Spanish, but at some point I'm going to hire someone to translate the Spanish into English, dub it, and then I'm going to do a commentary over it. I just can't. I first off, I don't know Spanish, but I have the breakdown of it, but doing a commentary over your own voice is really freaking weird, and I have to hire someone to help me with that, but it's gonna happen. It's been sitting in my to-do list for a long time. Anyways, in the case, this poor guy got mangled beyond belief in a motorcycle wreck in South America, and he ended up in a very kind of, I'll say similar, but not exactly. There are these healing centers in the astral. I know it sounds whacked, but they exist, okay? But the problem is it's a small percentage. Like, these things don't pop up enough where, you know, like, we've gone over tons and tons of these cases, but they're out there. And again, we can, if we want to be conservative, we can say 5 to 20% of cases could have a self-healing or a spontaneous healing, aspect to them. And in this case, he's on a motorcycle, ends getting mangled and taken to the hospital, and he ends up leaving his body and is in a basically like almost like a rundown, kind of like what Bethany was saying, like where it's a, you know, like a nuclear fallout zone, like a destroyed area, but it was a endless building with rooms, and there was, you know, being after being after being in these very, very I think you can say like monotone rooms, and there's just a slab of stone in the middle, and there's tons of, for lack of a better term, orbs or beings working on the individual or individuals to get them better and get them back to Earth. It's a hell of a case. Okay, Stone White said, okay. Yeah, if anyone does want to help me with the translation and go through and dub the entire case, I'd greatly appreciate it. Just leave a comment after the stream in the comment section, or if you're watching the replay, leave a comment afterwards and I'll send you the link, and then all you got to do is just screen record and dub over the Spanish voice. Okay. And it's one I've wanted to comment. There's actually quite a number of cases from this specific channel that case came from, that I'd love to talk about, but like that one with the motorcycle has been on my mind forever. It's a hell of a case, and but the whole point of me talking about this is about the spontaneous healing aspect of things. You know, some laugh at it and, you know, say, "Oh, it's bullshit." It's not bullshit. It's not. Like it's absolutely something that happens when. And the other thing out there, like the common narrative is like, "Oh, well, you know, if you know, your heart stops for more than 10 minutes, like there's no chance of you coming back." That is complete BS. Like you know, there are a number of cases out there where we see individuals who have been gone for much longer than 10 minutes, sometimes bordering on creepy, where they've come back, you know, for lack of a better term, Dracula style, and rose up from the dead and come back to life. So you know, even with what Bethany went through, you know, she flatlined multiple times, and she complains about short-term memory, and understandably so. But I think even her case defies medical odds. Now, do we have the exact numbers of how long she was out and all that stuff? No. I mean, perhaps maybe she shares it somewhere else, but I'm not aware of it. But the point is we're just told these things. The medical establishments are told these things, like, "Oh, well, you can't survive, you know, you'll be brain dead or you'll be a vegetable if you know, your heart goes and you're out for 10 minutes and then we revive you." I mean, it's just not the case every single time. Sometimes there are anomalies, which you would think should question the integrity of the entire system, but it doesn't. So, anyways, we'll move along.
They said I would need 3 to 6 months of rehab. Now, my pulmonology team, nurses, they all thought it was a miracle that I survived to begin with, but even more so that what happened after happened. Not that it happened, but the way it happened. It was literally in a moment. So I go home and I start recovering, and then about the second day, mind you, I've been on morphine this whole time, and they sent me home on like Percocet. I'm having this pain in my chest, and I had been having pain there the whole time. I went through a major lung infection, so 2 Percocet weren't even touching the pains, and that's not helping. That's not a good sign. So I let my husband know I was just in a lot of pain, and he took me back to the emergency room, and this time they did an MRI with contrast, and they said when the doctor came, I'm in the ER at my little country hospital. He comes back and he's like, "Girl, your lungs look like Swiss cheese." So apparently I had like this flesh-eating lung infection, and I have the report. I had like centimeters big. And people said before, everybody has holes in their lungs. Yes, I know that. But there were actually ulcers in my lungs. And so I had to go back into the hospital. They sent me in an ambulance back to the hospital I was at in the ICU. But this time, fortunately, I was in a step-down unit. That way my husband could be with me. And I just needed to be on very, very strong antibiotics. They also did cultures to find out what I had. I got a visit from the CDC because my cultures came back as they didn't know what it was. So I had infectious disease specialists try to figure it out. They never did. Still don't know what I had. So I spent another 2 weeks at that hospital, and then I was finally released. Now, my recovery has been a very, very long one. I thank God every day that most of my cognitive function returned, and that I remembered everyone, and it just could have been, first of all, it could have been the end. And almost was. It just could have been a lot worse. All that said, so things that still affect me today. So anytime you have, sorry, I'm looking for my lash glue. So anytime you have a major trauma or infection, anytime the body does, it can trigger autoimmune disorders. So I do struggle with fibromyalgia and RA. My body has never really felt the same, but again, it could have been a lot worse. I still have, at times,
Okay, so I think what we'll do is probably wrap things up there. I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by tonight. I appreciate you. If you don't mind hitting the like button on your way out, I'd greatly appreciate it. It does help potentially get the channel into the algorithm on all the platforms. I want to give, again, a big thank you to Knack for the super chat, AA for the super chat, and Viru for the super chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all, and gonna probably close things out for the night, and we'll see each other, I don't know, maybe by the weekend probably, and then there'll be some midweek streams the following week, so keep an eye on the channel. Also consider throwing your email in the email list. I promise I'll never, ever, ever sell your data, share your data, any of that stuff. It's just a way for us to stay in touch. I've had the email list for probably close to 2 years now. I haven't sent out one damn email, but if something happens, or maybe there's some important information I want to share about the channel or the future website, whenever that opens, then that's one of the methods we can kind of communicate in. And there's also the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, where I send out notifications each prior to each stream, about an hour before. And then there's, I don't know, the community tab with YouTube. And then I know if you sign up with Odysee or Rumble, you can also get emails sent to you, and their notification systems are great. I love Odysee. Odysee is one of my favorite platforms. If you haven't checked it out yet and you're interested, there's a link in the description tab. And it does, by joining with that, it does help the channel. I mean, Odysee is a different kind of platform where, like, you have to use these, I guess, like, library coins to get your content out there, and you kind of bid to share your information. So it does help to have a little extra here and there to be able to work with. I mean, I've tried buying some, and I can't do it anymore, but it's and by the way, anyone listening out there who has library coins, I'm more than willing to buy them. It's just, for some reason, you can't find them. So if anyone is interested in selling any, please reach out to me by leaving a comment. And I'm just trying to spread the word on that platform, and as well as Rumble and YouTube, of course. So I think that'll be about it. We'll see you all again soon. Don't work too hard this week. And as long as I can get a day or two by the editor, then the video editor, then the Raymond Moody video should be out before the end of the year. Hopefully. All right. Don't work too hard this week, my friends, all right? We'll see each other soon.